D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you on a Thursday. Derek, David, and I are in Nashville.
Good
Willie
deal.
is in Salt Lake City, Utah, where the Nashville Predators will take on the Utah Hockey Club tonight at 8. Pregame starts at 7 right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie, let's get our Salt Lake City scouting report. What were you able to ascertain on your maiden voyage to Salt Lake City?
You like that, don't you, Will?
I'll tell you what, and D-Mace, I believe you've been here, right? You told me you've
Yes, I
spent some
loved it.
time here.
Yeah, I loved it.
I got a little bit of a Denver vibe to Salt
Mhm.
Lake City, which isn't surprising, and we're not that far from Denver, but it's very, very scenic. I mean,
Mhm.
you are in this little, I guess you would call it a valley,
Yeah.
because you're just surrounded by mountains almost every direction you look. It's very beautiful to look at. And the city it's not a huge downtown, but it's compact. We're very close to the Delta Center, where John Stockton and Karl Malone once roamed for a long time for the Jazz, and now they got a hockey team there.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed my time there. Went there twice. The last time with my son, we both had a wonderful time. Um, so I like the city. I hadn't been, I didn't roam around a lot, but seemed like it's a good city.
Yeah, it's peaceful. It's
Yeah,
clean.
peaceful, clean.
We found a fun brewery and
Hmm.
restaurant to hang out and have dinner. And
How's the hockey
uh,
fans there?
well, we're going to find out tonight. This is our
Hmm.
first time playing there. They unfortunately have fallen out of playoff contention. For about I guess a month and a half. It's looked like they've slipped some. I think if they play their cards right, they could have a good team fairly soon. They took over the Arizona team that stockpiled a ton of draft picks. They just kept spinning their wheels. Every time somebody would get good, they would trade them and get a bunch of first round picks. So they have a good nucleus of young players, and now they have a budget to go and keep some of those guys and then dabble in the free agent market. So I think they want to spend to the cap.
Hmm.
So I think they're going to be a team to watch going forward here. But they're in the mushy middle right now.
The most important question, however, was Hal Gill able to get enough liquor in him? Because that was a concern, right? That was a concern.
It was a
Did
concern, and I think we gained time coming out here. It's quite a long flight, and we were against the wind, so it took a little longer to get out here. But gaining the time to get to Mountain Time, and Nick Barnowski read the same information you read on the air yesterday. I informed him. I said, Nick, you obviously didn't listen to our show because Adam already shared this news about the parameters and the alcohol consumption and the hours you can do so. And I think Hal concluded that there was some bad info. I think he thought that everything closed down before sunset or something like that. He was very stressed about this. But I think there was ample time to enjoy the evening, for sure.
So the Predators play at Utah for the first time. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. So there is something about NFL draft season that I find to be, for lack of a better word, dangerous. And that's NFL player comps.
Mhm.
A lot of us don't have the time, don't have the skill or expertise to sit down and watch hours of film on these NFL prospects and come to our own conclusions. A lot of us rely on the opinions of others, NFL draft analysts and such, to help us formulate our opinions. And the easiest way for people to grasp who an NFL prospect could be
Mhm.
is by looking at the comps. This draft prospect compares to this established NFL player. because that's easy for all of us to understand, right? If you are a fan of football, you may not be a big fan of college football, but if you watch enough NFL football and some draft guru says this quarterback projects to be this quarterback that you know, it helps us get a feel for who that quarterback could be. And then yesterday, Louis Riddick, NFL draft analyst on ESPN, someone whose opinion I trust, someone whose opinion a lot of you trust, went on NFL Live and said this about Cam Ward.
You want a guy who has no limitations. And quite honestly, he doesn't have any limitations. So I see this being a perfect marriage on the football field. Look, any question that starts with players, to me, Hannah, you know how I am, is really just about fit and about personalities,
Right.
and whether or not people can really get on with one another off the field, in the locker room, in the classroom, on the practice field. And I don't think there'll be any problems with that either. Look, I said my comp for Cam Ward because of the way he plays. He reminds me of Patrick. He reminds me of Mahomes, with how he can be unconventional, throw the football from all different kinds of weird angles, and then just put a bunch of horsepower on it when he needs to. And look, to me, if someone was telling me, hey, that's maybe what you're getting, I'd be damn excited. Now, I'm not saying I'm exactly right, but that's my bet, that Cam Ward will have that kind of impact and play that kind of style of football in Tennessee if they happen to select him number one.
I heard that, and this was my first thought. Oh, you done did it now, Louis Riddick.
You gave Jared a whole show.
Exactly. And look, if you listen to
I'm
that
messing with
clip,
you, Jared.
Louis Riddick mentions a couple of aspects of Cam Ward's game that remind him of Patrick Mahomes. But it's like a game of telephone, right?
Mhm.
I tell Derek something, Derek tells Willie something. It's not the same. Things get lost in translation. I am sure some of you have been told by someone else, did you hear that Louis Riddick said that Cam Ward is going to be Patrick Mahomes? That's why this is dangerous.
Mhm.
So I heard that and I said, oh no. Oh no. So if it turns out that Cam Ward has Patrick Mahomes-like attributes, sign me up. But when I heard that, I just thought to myself, oh no, guys. Oh no.
Okay. I am going to say this, and I'm going to try to be as direct as possible. I watched more of Cam Ward's tape.
And we are going to
Yeah,
go
and we're
through
gonna-
that
but-
later in the
exactly.
program.
I watched more and more. I even went back to his high school days. This is how much, like, I'm starting to really get invested in this, because I'm trying to figure out why there's such a hesitation with this young man. So I'm trying to figure out the why. Why do people? Because it's like they're picking sort of kind of, but it's not concrete stuff. It's based on, you know, this person's opinion or this person's opinion, and their opinions may differ in a sense, but they may mean the same altogether. I want to find out why. So I went back to his high school days just to see him as a passer. Then I went each level, you know, Incarnate Word, Washington State, and then finally the Hurricanes. And I am trying, and I'm watching this kid, like, his release is like Dan Marino-ish. If you watch him throw like these quick hitches and stuff, he gets the ball out like Patrick Mahomes in a sense. Jared talked about this yesterday, and it made great sense. And I think I heard it somewhere else before. But he talked about, I think he was talking about, you know, his ability to throw the football because he was a baseball player. So, you know, it may come out a little different. They can throw a little unorthodox off platform, because pitchers, that's sort of the pitcher's frame. So I'm watching this kid, and I'm like, he's a former baseball player. So you see all of those things, just like Caleb Williams, another baseball player. You see all these things and these similarities. And I came just like Riddick. I said, this dude looks, because then I went back and I watched Patrick Mahomes in college. I just watched him in college. I watched like 2 or 3 games. And I'm looking like, this dude, Patrick's better, yes. But this dude reminds me more of Patrick, not to say he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but he reminds me more of Patrick Mahomes and Caleb Williams than anything else. And I'm trying to find a fault in his game. And I'm like, one guy said, well, he holds the ball below his shoulders. How many quarterbacks hold the ball above their shoulders? None. He holds the ball right in that chest, stomach area where a lot of quarterbacks do. Can he pull it up some? Possibly, yes. But that's like, dude, I mean, you watch Patrick Mahomes in college. They didn't change much with him in Kansas City. All the stuff they said, oh, he's not going to be able to do in the NFL. Well, he's doing all of it. Again, I am not saying that Cam Ward is going to be Patrick Mahomes. But if you just watch him intently and then think about the things that Patrick Mahomes does, or even did in college, and then think about the things Caleb Williams did in college. I'm not saying he's those guys, but there are similarities, more so with those 2 guys than any other quarterback.
Well, I'm glad, number one, that D-Mace, you've watched as much as you can. I need to do the same thing before the draft, honestly, and I'll have a little more time on my hands, unfortunately, because the Predator season is going to end before it normally does. But I am very careful. I can make the filter when Louis Riddick says something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can filter what he's saying. Unfortunately, I think you made a good reference with the game of telephone. How many people have played the game of telephone these days? Like, wasn't this like before phones, before cell phones? It was a fun game to play as a kid when you didn't have a cell phone, and a lot of people didn't have video games and stuff like that. Hey, let's play telephone. But you know, it does get extrapolated. There's hyperbole involved. You know, I think he's watching and looking for similar traits. And you have to be careful not to interpret that as this guy's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, because there is no other Patrick Mahomes. I've never seen a guy before Patrick Mahomes anything like him, and I don't think
Rodgers is the closest.
Yeah, and he's pretty unique himself, right? But the angles of the throws and things like that, you know, if you can see some similarities, you're right to point that out. But this is in every sport. It is good to get sort of a similar character traits, but be careful not to overhype, because that's not doing Cam Ward any favors.
It's not to necessarily overhype, because I am not trying to, make him more than what, it is. I am just basically like, I looked at it, and I looked at it intently, all of it. And I said, well, man, he looks more like this guy, because again, player comp, they all do it.
Yes.
He looks more like this guy than he does that guy over there. Not saying he's going to be this guy, but if you're looking at like body movement, the way he throw the football, the release, he has the touch. He can throw that deep ball with precision and power. He can throw that intermediate right on the dime. That's the stuff that I'm looking at, and I'm like, what is this? Why are so many people so down on him? Because he's making again, just watch it. He's making listen, he's not perfect. I'm not saying he's perfect. He's not perfect. He does have his flaws. But when you watch him, watch the what game was that? Where he started off a little slow and then picked it up. It wasn't
Virginia Tech, perhaps?
It was Virginia Tech. Yes, it was Virginia Tech. He had some drops in there too, but he made a few bad decisions. Caleb Williams made a bunch of bad decisions that last season, and nobody held that against him.
Was it the game where the Hail Mary was overturned at the end?
Yes, it was a
Yeah.
crazy game.
Yeah.
That was
uh-huh.
the
Fortunate
Virginia
to
Tech
win.
game.
Yeah, they got down, and I think he ended up throwing 2 interceptions that game, and they were not good interceptions.
He went 24 of 38 for 343 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions.
Exactly. So you're gonna have games like that, but if you
Right, and
watch,
that would be the wrap, don't you think, Derek? That I read a lot is that, and that game could be a good example. He will take some chances,
Mhm.
and he'll make great plays, but he when you do that, you do have some plays that
but
that
that's the
go the
same
other way.
thing. That's the same thing they said about Pat Mahomes. Same
Fair.
exact thing. You know, he can be a little reckless with the football. I would have loved to see, because when we look at Cam Ward and his numbers, they were great. Um, but they're still like this. Well, and again, I'm not saying that he's better than this guy. Joe Burrow, for instance, I would have loved to see Ward in Joe Burrow's situation with 3 bona fide first round picks. I think the other guy ended up getting drafted in the second round. But 3, and 2 of them right now are considered the best, 1 and 2 at their position. You got those 3 guys you're throwing the football to. And listen, Joe Burrow was a hell of a quarterback. He orchestrated it all. I'm not saying that he is Joe Burrow, but I would have loved to see Cam Ward be put in that system with those type guys, because he didn't have them in Miami. He had some good players, but he didn't have them. But what I'm saying is this: if you watch these games, he's making when you talk about leveling the ball and making those level throws, he makes every level throw there is with accuracy. It's not like, oh, like Will Levis. Yeah, he can throw the deep ball, but that short and medium stuff, and it proved to be true. Got a little better, but it still proved to be true. Cam Ward can make every throw. Like every throw, he can make it with precision. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the knock on this dude? I'm trying and explain to me more. Like, I'm trying to get this from everybody. Explain to me why you don't like him. Like, what makes him, not be a top pick last year?
That was the homework assignment, Willie. You missed this in the second half of the show. But
That's
Derek,
why I even watched the film.
Derek assigned our listeners some homework, and Derek took the time to do his own homework by watching all of this Cam Ward film. But Derek's homework to all of our listeners, and we'll get back to this. We're going to check. Where are those teachers that will make sure that you did your homework? We'll go desk by desk and make sure that you did your homework. Some teachers, they assume you did it and just didn't check. We're going to check. I fell prey to that many times when I was a kid. It's like, oh, I'm not going to
check.
I'm not going to do the homework because I don't think the teacher's going to check. And lo and behold,
desk check.
They would check. But but Derek's point was he tasked the listeners with bringing to us reasons why Cam Ward is not worthy of being the number 1 overall pick outside of the stuff that we usually hear, which is, well, so-and-so draft guru says he's the 10th best prospect in the NFL draft, so therefore you can't draft him number 1. Derek was looking for a little bit more substance, which we will get to. Mm-hmm. But Derek did the homework, and our listeners hopefully did the homework as well.
Well, there's 2 other things that I would want to point out. Number 1, I do think it's significant because I've heard Louis Riddick do this more than once. He is very excited about Cam Ward, and that gives me some optimism. I've only gone by what the consensus is of the evaluation across the board from Ward, and assess that he is not he's not the ideal first pick in the draft. He is a good quarterback prospect, but is he worthy of the first pick? That's always been my question. Number 2, the last point on the player comps, and I think I've said this before, but again, the player comps are useful if they're put in the right context, but it doesn't mean you're going to turn into that guy. And so you are often disappointed if you have that in your mind. And I'll take myself, right, in my 2 sports. I was recruited by Vanderbilt basketball. My player comp, for Vanderbilt basketball fans that can go back a ways, Barry Goheen, a great player in the Will Purdue bomb squad era. Barry Goheen, left-handed. Donick, out of Florida, left-handed. Barry Goheen, 6'2", 6'3", can play point guard, can play off guard. Donick, 6'3", can play point guard, can play off guard. Barry Goheen, all SEC player. Donick, not all SEC player. Not
But he
quite the same
tried
level
really,
of
really
player.
hard.
Yeah, not quite the same. But you could see that. But you could see the similar traits, right? And in baseball, Donick gets drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays. Who's the player comp? They had a first baseman named John Olerud, batting title winner, super player for a long, long time. Left-handed, pitched and played in the field in college. Check. Donick did the same thing at Vanderbilt. Hey, same kind of left-handed swing. If he puts a little weight on, develops a little power, maybe he can make it. So Olerud, you saw his career. Not a Hall of Famer, but a great player for a long, long time. Donick didn't get past Class A. So player comps can be put in for anybody, right? And it gives you a picture. Scouts are looking for traits, but it doesn't mean that you're going to always hit. It rarely does, right? Because you're comparing them to people that have been really, really successful. That's the only thing I would say.
615-737-1025. You heard the clip from Louis Riddick making some comparisons between Cam Ward and Patrick Mahomes. What do you make of that? 615-737-1025. I've also collected some other Cam Ward comps that I want to share with all of you, and we'll do that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick will leave us for a little bit. He will be back in the final hour. Tune into 94.9 Fan. Let me start that again. Tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Memphis. Pre-game begins at 6:20 p.m. and the first pitch is at 6:35 p.m. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure.
Nothing wrong with quoting the Caddyshack lines. Nothing at all. And also nothing wrong with our friends at F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. They do a fantastic job making your life easier when it comes to your finances. Who wants to make it more complicated? But look, they take the obvious and they have it in practice every day with all the tools in your neighborhood. They've got 20 locations, and they try to be right smack in the middle of your community, whether it's Nashville on West End Avenue or out in Murfreesboro, Main Street, Mount Juliet, Springfield, a lot of places like that where they want to build a relationship with you with the tools for success. So go to myfmbank.com. Their business means more to you. They do a fantastic job connecting with their business partners, whether you're a business owner yourself, or whether you're just a regular guy just trying to make it happen financially and get ahead of the game. myfmbank.com. We have had such a great season taking it to the bank. We're going to crown the champion. Crown the champion. Yes, it pains me to say it, but D-Mace has won it. We'll have a big ceremony tomorrow with our Take It to the Bank segment we have every Friday at 1:45. Remember, myfmbank.com. Banking made easy on purpose. Member FDIC.
You want a guy who has no limitations. And quite honestly, he doesn't have any limitations. So I see this being a perfect marriage on the football field. Look, any question that starts with players to me, Hannah, you know how I am, is really just about fit and about personalities
Right.
and whether or not people can really get on with one another off the field, in the locker room, in the classroom, on the practice field. And I don't think there'll be any problems with that either. Look, I said my comp for Cam Ward because of the way he plays. He reminds me of Patrick. He reminds me of Mahomes with how he can be unconventional, throw the football from all different kinds of weird angles, and then just put a bunch of horsepower on it when he needs to. And look, to me, if someone was telling me, hey, that's maybe what you're getting, I'd be pretty damn excited. Now, I'm not saying I'm exactly right, but that's my bet, that Cam Ward will have that kind of impact and play that kind of style of football in Tennessee if they happen to select him number one.
That was Louis Riddick yesterday on ESPN. As I said, when I saw that clip, I thought to myself, oh no, Louis, what have you done? Because as I said, through the game of telephone, someone's going to watch that clip and they're going to tell their friend, who's going to tell their friend. And then that person is going to tell their friend, Louis Riddick said that Cam Ward is going to be the next Patrick Mahomes. That's not what he said. But this is why.
But that's what some people are going to hear.
Right. That's why I find these comps, again, as I said at the top of the show, that's why I find them to be a little dangerous sometimes. But what's interesting about this exercise, as we know, is that it's completely subjective.
Mhm.
Louis Riddick sees things differently than Mel Kiper Jr., who sees things differently from Todd McShay, who sees things differently than Dane Brugler. It's subjective. And I pulled a couple of other recent Cam Ward comps just to get a sense of what the draft analysts are seeing out of the player we all believe will be the number one overall pick in the draft 2 weeks from tonight, thankfully. 2 weeks from tonight. So the Ringer, in the Ringer's NFL draft guide, it says that Cam Ward has shades of Jordan Love.
Okay.
Derek, you sent me the Pro Football Focus draft guide, which compared Cam Ward to Ben Roethlisberger. The 33rd team did a comparison, I believe, in February, in which they compared Cam Ward to Sam Darnold. And Dane Brugler, in his Beast, his NFL draft guide, he projects Cam Ward as an NFL starter in the mold of a taller, slower version of Kyler Murray. So that's 5 different comps. You have Louis Riddick making some comparisons with Patrick Mahomes. You have The Ringer making comparisons to Jordan Love. You have PFF making comparisons to Ben Roethlisberger. You have the 33rd team making comparisons to Sam Darnold, and you have Dane Brugler of The Athletic making comparisons to Kyler Murray. It's a wide range of comparisons, Derek.
Yeah, it is. And again, I go back and I'm going to believe what my eyes tell me and what I'm seeing. And that is he's more similar to Patrick Mahomes in college than he is Ben Roethlisberger. And for all those that say he's not a good runner, did y'all must then go back there and watch him in Washington State, or when he did actually run in Miami. He is a hell of a runner. He just chooses not to run. He is like Patrick Mahomes was the same way in college. He may have ran a little bit more than I'm sure he did than Cam Ward. But when you watch him and Patrick, I'm trying, unless I know that lane is there right away, or it's 3rd and 8 or 9 and everybody's covered and I got to run. Okay. But if you watch Cam Ward run, this dude can run. He just doesn't run. So again, people that look at him and say, well, he's not a good runner. Yes, he is. He just chooses not to run. He want to see. I think this is what happens, and because for so long, and Lamar is going through this now with Baltimore, because for so long they were just seen as running quarterbacks first instead of quarterbacks that can run. You know, that was the thing. But now I think because of that, I think a lot of quarterbacks are choosing to not run sometimes, even when they can. They choose to stay in the pocket or buy some time in the pocket to try to find the guy down the field, because to them, it's like, listen, you're going to be more enamored by this, my ability to escape the pocket and buy a little time, than you are with my running, because I'm not a Lamar Jackson. I'm a good runner. I can get the job done if need be. So I think that is why Cam Ward chooses not to run. That is why Shedeur Sanders, I believe, chooses not to run. Now, Cam is a much better athlete than Shedeur, but I think because of this stereotype that you still have in the back of your mind, it's like, I'm going to prove to them that I'm a passer first, and I will deal with the running stuff later. They just assumed that I could run, so that's good. But I'm going to show them that I could pass within the pocket, so I'm going to buy a little time. That is what people, just watch it. Watch more than one game. Matter of fact, they have it online. You can watch Incarnate Word. You can watch games. Just go back and watch it, and you will see what I'm talking about. Washington State, he ran more. He was more effective in running. He got a little speed to him. But in Miami, he didn't have to unless he wanted to.
One texter says, I keep hearing this on this station that Cam Ward is ranked like 16 of 20 of quarterbacks in the first round since 2020. Where were Mahomes and Lamar and Allen ranked? No one ever says that. So what I believe the texter is referring to is an article we've referenced, and not just our show. Other shows have referenced it as well on our station. It was written by Matt Miller of ESPN.com, one of ESPN's top NFL draft analysts, along with Mel Kiper, Jordan Reed, and Field Yates. Matt Miller wrote a story that was published on March 1st, in which he polled NFL scouts, decision makers, and analysts to help build a list of the top quarterback prospects taken in the first round between 2020 and 2025. So that's why you don't hear about Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, because they were drafted before 2020. So of these quarterbacks drafted between 2020 and 2024, plus Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders to make it 2025, Cam Ward ranked 18th out of 21. The only quarterbacks lower than Cam Ward are Michael Penix, who was drafted last year, number 8 overall by the Atlanta Falcons, Shedeur Sanders, who of course has yet to be drafted, and Kenny Pickett, who was drafted number 20 overall in 2022. I know we've referenced it. Jared's referenced it. I believe Robbie and Joe have referenced it. And it's been one of the reasons, admittedly, why Titans fans are so unsure about Cam Ward. In this poll of NFL scouts and executives grading these prospects that were taken in the first round, quarterback prospects, I should say, Cam Ward's near the bottom of the list. So why should the Titans draft him number 1? So perhaps I've played a part in this. So for that, I apologize. But to answer the texter's question, the reason why you don't hear about Mahomes and Lamar and Allen is in this exercise is that they were all drafted before 2020.
Okay, those individuals that were drafted before Cam Ward, I would love to know what they are doing now in the NFL.
The ones on this
how
list?
accomplished they are in the NFL.
All right.
It's just not neither. It's not a, yeah, but okay.
Let's do a rapid fire.
Okay.
Caleb Williams was number 1.
He's still growing.
Trevor Lawrence, 2.
He's been okay.
Joe Burrow, 3.
He's been great.
He's been pretty good.
Jaden Daniels, 4.
He's been pretty good.
Drake May, 5.
He's been good.
Tua, 6.
He's been good.
Herbert, 7.
He's been good.
Bryce Young, 8.
Not so much so.
Zach Wilson, 9.
No.
CJ Stroud, 10.
Yes.
JJ McCarthy, 11.
No,
Incomplete
yeah.
because he hasn't played. Trey Lance, 12.
No,
Anthony Richardson, 13.
no,
Justin Fields, 14.
no,
Mac Jones, 15.
no.
Jordan Love, 16.
Yes.
Bo Nix, 17.
He's been, first year was good.
And then Cam Ward.
So what I'm saying is that you're just going to get just as many misses as you do hits. And then when you're talking about elite hits, I don't think you got an elite hit on there just yet. Do you? Joe Burrow, he's elite.
And Jaden Daniels had an excellent
Yes,
first
but
season.
he's not elite.
But
But
it's
he's
been
not
one,
exactly.
It's been one season.
Because CJ Stroud, everybody thought he was going to be the next. He was the best thing since sliced bread. He took a step back. Still was good, but he took a step back. So let's run. He had a really good rookie season. Now, can you put it together for a second season? So what I'm saying is this, basically. You're going to get half of them that hit and half of them that don't, or 60% that hit, 40% that don't. Where does Cam Ward fall in this mix after his first year? So you can't say, well, he's below. Well, half of those guys didn't make it, or they're doing horrible. So that sort of defeats your purpose.
615-737-1025. We will take your reaction to all of this at 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, 1025-1063 The Game. D. Mace Vingan, Adonic, 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. 1025 The Game and Green River Whiskey have teamed up to give away tickets to see Lainey Wilson at Bridgestone Arena in the all-inclusive Eurostone Club on Thursday, October 2nd. Tune in to Chase and Big Joe tomorrow morning during the 9 a.m. hour for the keyword to text in for your chance to win tickets. Green River Whiskey. Sit back, relax, and bourbon. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol volume varies by product. Of course, please drink responsibly. So let's get some of your reaction on our phone and text lines.
Quickly.
Yes.
I said defeats your purpose. I meant to say defeats your argument.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I believe I said that Joe Burrow was drafted before 2020. He was drafted in 2020.
There we go.
We all make
Corrections.
mistakes. We're none of us perfect. Let's go to our text line driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Doug in Franklin says, guys, the comparisons don't matter. These are the athletes. This is the draft class. This is what you have to work with. End of story. Dustin in Hopkinsville says, you couldn't give these two quarterbacks away 2 months ago. No games have been played since. Not one ball has been thrown in pads or in a game setting. I'm not buying any of this crap. Definitely do not have FOMO over them. It's goofy to me. Get a haul. Might suck next year. Fill some holes. Get a wide receiver group and badass tight end for the new quarterback you draft next year. Okay. I do want to address this one thing, right? Because those of you who are not high on Cam Ward, you think to yourself, or you say to us on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, just wait till next year. Pass on the quarterback this year. Wait till next year. Draft Arch Manning. Draft Drew Aller. Draft one of those quarterbacks who are going to be in the class next season. But what happens if the Titans pass on a quarterback this year? They go back to Will Levis. They play Brandon Allen. Who cares? They stink again. And you're in the same position next year. And you're starting to hear the same things about Arch Manning and Drew Aller. Are you just going to say, yeah, let's just suck again. Let's pass on the quarterback. We'll worry about it. Are you going to keep kicking that can down the road year after year after year? That's a dangerous game. So are there questions about Cam Ward? Yes, there are absolutely questions about Cam Ward. But it's just as risky to pass on Cam Ward and hope that next year the quarterbacks are better. Because what happens if they're not? What happens if those of you who want the Titans to draft Arch Manning and Arch Manning has a bad season? What are you going to do? Are you going to say the same things about Arch Manning that you're saying about Cam Ward?
No, they won't.
I'm just trying to paint the picture from both ends.
And for the texter that said, well, you haven't heard anything. You didn't hear anything about these two quarterbacks, 2-3 weeks ago. Well, you heard a lot about them 2 or 3 weeks ago, even up right starting with the combine. Listen, if you watch the season, and I'm just talking about Cam Ward, if you watch the season, these announcers, they raved about Cam Ward and his ability to potentially play at the next level and the attributes. They talked about this all year, college football, whether it's game day, because Miami was on television a lot. Why? A lot. Because why? Cam Ward. Because he was a Heisman Trophy candidate. And he lived up to the billing. Did he have a bad game? Yeah, just like all the rest of those quarterbacks, had bad games. But he was talked about then. And then what happens? Well, now the college football playoff starts. So you're not hearing about any of these guys in regards to, where they're going to go in the NFL draft outside of announcers, calling games and saying, well, that Abdul Carter, he is projected a first round pick or a top of the first round pick, stuff like that. It's not until after the college football playoffs is over where now people are really starting to dive into each one of these individuals. And the more and more they watch film, the more and more they sort of, decipher who's better than the next guy, who's better at this position than his counterpart. When that started happening, it was clear that it was two guys, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. It was clear. They weren't talking about Jackson Dart. Jalen Milroe had basically all but, killed his chances of being the first round pick during the season. Now he's starting to pick up a little steam now, but he wasn't in the mix. None of these quarterbacks. It was 2 quarterbacks. And that was in late January, February. And now it's 1. So I don't understand this. You can't fool. They wasn't talking. They have been talking about these guys. I just want to know, again, I just want to know why. I want to know the why not. That's all. Because if you're just telling me, I don't know much of what you can tell me other than, I don't know, he hadn't played enough, or, he keeps the ball below his chest. He take chances. That's the big one. He take chances.
What I find interesting, I just pulled up from ESPN.com, Field Yates's way too early mock draft for 2025, which was published on August 21st, 2024. So before college football season really began. Here are some of the mock selections that Field Yates had, and I'm not meaning to pick on Field Yates. I'm just pointing out how things can change rapidly over the course of the season. Who do you think Field Yates had as the number 1 overall pick in his mock draft in August of 2024?
Wow. That's
I'll give you a hint.
Bo Nix?
No. Well, Bo Nix was drafted this past year.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'll give you a hint. He went back to college. He's going to be in college football.
Carson Beck.
Carson Beck.
Yes.
Field Yates had Carson Beck as the number 1 overall pick in his way too early mock draft in August 2024. He had Shedeur Sanders going 4th to the Titans. He had Quinn Ewers going 8th to the Raiders. Now, here's the rub. I don't think Cam Ward is on this list. And that's another thing that some Titans fans will point out. How did Cam Ward go from not being in this mock draft in August of 2024, this first round mock draft, and now he's expected to go number 1 overall?
I wonder where did he have Jayden Daniels in his way too early?
I mean, Joe Burrow wasn't even
he wasn't even exactly
3-round picks. Like, he was a 4th rounder.
I will take a look at that during the break because that's an interesting question. 615-737-1025. I also got a question on my personal text line from one Jared Stillman.
I knew it.
So I will present that to the class as well. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Get your reaction in right now. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is from 12 Stones Crossing Golf Club in Goodlettsville. They offer 18 championship holes spanning over 6,800 yards with the meandering Madison Creek at its centerpiece. Get half off a $50 gift card now while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick will return in the final hour. Elliot Friedman, Sportsnet's NHL insider, will join us at 1 o'clock. So Willie will be back in time for our chat with Elliot Friedman. So before the break, Derek, you asked me to look up some way too early mock drafts from the past. You asked me where Jaden Daniels was listed in the 2024 way too early mock draft. I found Todd McShay's on ESPN.
And what prompted my question was the person said that, Cam Ward wasn't being talked about and all this other stuff. So go ahead.
Todd McShay posted May 4th, 2023. Jaden Daniels, not in the first round in this mock draft, way too early mock draft in May of 2023, looking ahead to 2024. You also asked me about Joe Burrow.
Ooh, I know he was the top 10 pick.
Joey Burr, yeah.
I found
There's no
Todd
way he's not.
McShay's way too early mock draft from 2020, published May 2nd, 2019. Where's Joe Burrow? Oh, he's not on here.
Wow. Okay.
Surprising.
So
Very surprising.
things can change rapidly. So, as I said, I received on my personal text line, not driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, though I am open to it. I received a text from Jared Stillman. Now,
We said his name too many times.
Yeah.
well, depending on your age, you could say Beetlejuice. You say Beetlejuice,
I say
Beetlejuice,
Candyman.
Beetlejuice, or Candyman. I say Joe Hendry. Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. Anyway, Jared Stillman texted in because I think this was in response to my point about fans who want the Titans to pass on a quarterback this year and wait until next year to try again. He said, instead of chasing a quarterback by going all in on Ward or quote unquote waiting for next year, how hard is it to do what Tampa Bay did? They let Tom Brady come to them. Then they signed Baker Mayfield, have been to the playoffs like 5 straight years without using a single pick.
Okay, so who's going to be your Baker Mayfield? Who's going to be your Tom Brady?
Well, Jared would have loved for Sam Darnold to be the Tom Brady slash Baker Mayfield.
We're living in reality and real time right now. Who is your Baker Mayfield right now? And who is your Tom Brady? Matter of fact,
at
who
this
is
very
your
moment?
Exactly. No, I'm saying like going into next season, who would be the Titans? Tom Brady, and then further, or you could say this season because they would have to do it this season to have 2 years to wait again for another guy. So who is the Tom Brady? He's not out there. Darnold wasn't even Tom Brady. So don't even put him in the same boat as Tom Brady.
Well, Geno Smith just re-signed, right?
He got traded.
Well, he did, but then he signed.
Yeah,
recently.
he resigned.
So he's not going to be a free agent.
No, he's
next
not.
summer,
I don't think.
right?
I think he got an extension with the Raiders.
I think that just
mistaken.
happened.
Yeah.
So
So again, who is your Tom Brady, and then who would be your Baker? So you're essentially
how about Brock Purdy?
no. San Fran's gonna end up signing him.
Okay,
they are.
I'm fresh out of ideas.
Yeah. So, but that's but now I understand what you're trying to get at. But I'm looking at it right now. Who would be your Tom Brady, and then who would be your Baker Mayfield? You're rolling the dice. It's like, oh, you expect it doesn't. You gave me Tampa. I can give you other teams that tried that method and it didn't work. The New York Jets, and we don't know if it's gonna work with the guy they threw underneath center now. So the Jets are headed more so toward not working than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So when you give me situations like that or scenarios, I can give you one that it didn't work. Again, tell me what Cam Ward doesn't do. Like, give me this list of things because he's not worthy of being the number 1 pick. Well, on Todd McShay 2-way early draft that he does way too early, and we forget about it because it came way too early, he didn't even have Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels on his list.
Correct. The summer before those drafts, according to Todd McShay, who was at ESPN at the time, He did not have Joe Burrow in the first round of his way too early 2020 mock draft. He did not have Jaden Daniels in his way too early 2024 mock draft.
Exactly. So
he had Caleb Williams and Drake May near the top of his 2024 way too early mock draft. He did not have Jaden Daniels.
But I just look at it from this standpoint, man. I've seen way more things he does extremely well than I have seen the things that he doesn't. And the things that he doesn't do quite well are the same things you said or what was being said about the quarterbacks that we consider, at the top of their game, whether they're elite or franchise quarterback. Majority of those guys had warts. Some, just like Cam Ward's, others may have been different. But those guys that are successful, that got drafted in the first round, they had those warts. I don't see enough to tell me not to draft him. Let's just say that.
Kenneth is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kenneth, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Adam? Derek, how's it going today?
Good,
Going
thank
well.
you.
All right. I called in about a month ago with a quote about bringing Malik Willis back and drafting Cam Ward. I don't know if y'all remember that.
No, I remember that
one. It's shameful to say, but just a lot of people that have been down on Cam Ward, it's just right out prejudice. They do not want a black quarterback, regardless of how good he's done or whatever. They just do not want a black quarterback here.
Thank you for the call, Kenneth.
I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm respectful to everybody, your views or whatnot. In this one, Kenneth, I can't agree with you on that. I don't think. Well, I want to, but let's just say this. I want to believe that when you're talking about the Titan fans, they are just looking at him as a player. And again, I'm asking them as a player, what are his hangups, so much so that you don't want to draft him first overall? I believe that when Titan fans are calling in or texting in and saying we don't want Cam Ward, it's not because he's a black man. I think some of it is because of what Jared's saying. And they believe Jared, and they listen to Jared, which is great. Keep on listening to Jared. Okay, please. He does an excellent, he's wonderful on air. Great. But I think some of their opinions is sort of, it's sort of biased because they listen to Jared. And maybe they're biased because they listen to us. But I think, we got a wide variety of opinions here. On Jared's show, it's just his opinion. So you're listening to it, and that's great. But I don't think the Titans fans are looking at Cam Ward and saying, we don't want him because he's a black quarterback. That is just me. I don't want to believe that. I'm not going to take it there. When I talk about certain stereotypes, that's what I was talking about earlier with, black quarterbacks, but quarterbacks in general. They want to show now that, listen, I can do more than just run the football. I can throw the football, because that's essentially what you're paying me to do, throw the football. So I want to show you that I can throw the football within the pocket. And sometimes, I believe sometimes because it was so prevalent that that's what you can do or that's all you can do first, they tend to want to prove a lot of people wrong. Even the guys that are at lower, Pavia, he's probably another example where I'm sure this season he's going to go out there and try to win, but he's going to show you that I can be a pocket passer too. Like I'm a dual threat. I can do both. So to me, I don't think, Kenneth, that the Titans fans are looking at this and saying, when I don't want him on our team because he's a black quarterback. Now I'm sure there are some out there that may be like that. But if we're talking about, the majority, I think the majority, they just, for whatever reason, they're finding fault in his game.
I was waiting for a text message like this. I hadn't seen one in a long time. So kudos to you, unnamed texter, who texted in and said, Cam Ward quit on his team at halftime of his team's bowl game.
Wow.
Tell me you're selfish without telling me you're selfish.
my
Okay.
goodness.
Because this was a big talking point during bowl season. The Pop-Tarts Bowl, the illustrious Pop-Tarts Bowl, where the winning team consumes a living Pop-Tart alive on the field at the end of the game.
Oh, well, he gets toasted. Okay, he's not alive.
He gets burned alive. He gets burned alive.
But he's not alive anymore. He goes on to Pop-Tart heaven.
He gets burned unalive. Okay.
That Pop-Tart was alive going down into that
I
big-ass
understand,
toaster.
but again, when they eat him, he's not alive anymore. That's all I just want to say.
It's cannibalism as far as I'm concerned. But
It's only Pop-Tartism.
it's neither here nor there. So I pulled up an article written
Okay.
from Bruce Feldman of The Athletic about this very subject. And Bruce Feldman writes this, quote, from talking to sources inside the Miami program, no one was surprised that Ward didn't finish the game. The Athletic learned that Ward agreed to start the game, but there was no timeline in terms of how long he would play. A big part of the reason Ward played, according to those program sources, was because he knew that if he opted out, 10 other players would have opted out as well. But if he started the game, those others would start too. I've had conversations, meaning Bruce Feldman, I've had conversations with multiple Miami coaches and staffers who have repeatedly gushed about Ward's leadership skills and competitiveness over the past year, and I doubt those sentiments have changed much. I know they haven't from a few of the people I have talked to since the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
And that is why that has not come up at all in evaluating Cam Ward, because they have made it very clear. Listen, he didn't quit on his team. He didn't. And listen, bowl games outside of the playoffs, bowl games now, all of these kids are leaving because they don't want to take a chance of getting hurt. So I commend those that come and they play in the game. But don't you see the bigger picture here? He just said it like, if I play, we all play. Isn't that, Titan fans, what you want on your team? A guy that is just going to go out there and do whatever he needs to do. Why? Because he knows if he does it, everybody else is going to do it.
What was the quote from Mike Borgonzi in the article from Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated that was written a couple of months
Did
ago?
he say something about the culture? And
Borgonzi wanted the number one pick to be someone who can drive the culture.
Mhm.
You can be blinded by the talent, but it's also important to have someone who can drive the culture. And unless I'm missing something egregious,
Mhm.
I haven't seen examples of people talking about Cam Ward's lack of leadership ability.
Well, they brought that up right during the bowl season, but then it seemed like it was quickly doused. Like that fire didn't even have time to reach the front. It was just out before it even started, because they got word that, listen, no, don't try to do this to a $1 player. No.
Anthony on our text line says, BS. If your teammate did that to you, you would be pissed.
No, I wouldn't. In a bowl game, again, if sometimes it's like you can't, sometimes it's hard to, I got to understand that there's a possibility more times that more likely that person has never been in that situation, like being on a college team or being on a pro team, and guys either, sitting out or guys choosing, doing because of whatever, whatever their reason, they choose to not play in that game. Okay. So don't, if I'm that guy on that team with him in today's football and I'm his wide receiver, if my quarterback doesn't play, I'm not playing. I am not playing. If I'm a senior and I'm a top 15, top 10 pick, if my quarterback, who's the leader of our team, if he's not playing, guess what I'm not doing? I'm not playing. I'm not. Why should I play? This is the guy I've been rolling with the whole season. If I'm going to go out here and look better, it's going to be with him, not the backup quarterback who I have no rapport with. Okay? So if my starter says, hey, Mace, I'm going. All right, Cam, let's do it. If he says, man, I'm just gonna go the first half, and this is the reason why I'm doing it, I'm like, okay, let's do it. I'm playing as long as you play. So to answer your question, I wouldn't be upset with him. If he chose to play a quarter, I'm playing a quarter. If he plays 2 quarters, I'm playing 2 quarters. Now, if he goes over that, it's like, Cam, like, dude,
You're going number one, bro. Let's chill.
exactly. You're on your own now. But outside of that, no, I would have looked at him knowing the landscape of sports now, college sports at least. I went, nobody's mad at him. Nobody said anything about Joey Bosa. I think he didn't play the last couple of games in college. He missed the whole season. I know he got hurt, but he could have came back. He could have came back, but he chose not to. I mean, they tried to make it a big deal at first, and then it was quickly doused, and it's never been brought up since.
615-737-1025. We have a lot of reaction to get to, so we'll do that next. 615-737-1025 if you want to join in on the conversation. It's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce we will be back at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. D. Mace Fingen and Donick, 1025, 1063. The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com and welcome in Daryl. Daryl, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
How are you?
Good afternoon.
Got a question. Here's something that's very perplexing to me. So presumably the best player in the draft is going to be the number one pick. The best player who is going to be drafted, if it is Cam Ward, would be Cam Ward. It would be the best quarterback in the draft. How is it that the best player who's going to be, if it is Cam Ward, did not win the Heisman? If he's that good, how is that possible?
Thank you for the call, Daryl.
Thank you. It happens all the time. Gino Toretta. Didn't he win Heisman at my University of Miami? I could be wrong. Big Joe's, he knows all the Heisman Trophy winners.
Yeah, you're going back too
Peyton
far for
Manning
me,
didn't
my
even win the
friend.
Heisman.
Yeah, Peyton Manning didn't win the Heisman. Now Charles Woodson did. Klingler out of Houston, or Andre Ware out of Houston. They won Heismans.
Marcus Mariota won the Heisman.
Yeah, Marcus
Sam
Mariota.
Bradford won the Heisman.
How did that work
Yeah.
out for Marcus?
Sam
at the
Bradford
NFL
won a
level?
Heisman. So you can't.
Jameis Winston won the Heisman.
Yes.
Johnny Manziel won the Heisman.
This is just
Robert
a name the
Griffin
Heisman
III won the Heisman.
Yeah, so there are a lot of individuals that are exceptional college players, and they end up winning a Heisman. But it doesn't ultimately translate once they get into the NFL. It just doesn't. So, and some guys may play extremely well, but they're not going to be considered a Heisman Trophy candidate. There are a lot of guys that play better, if you look at the numbers, than the actual Heisman Trophy winner. But they don't win it, or they are not even in the discussion. It was a quarterback for Hawaii some years ago where he was putting up like just gaudy numbers because of they were in the Mouse Davis. I mean, some years ago, I think Mouse Davis was the head coach.
Was it Colt Brennan
I think it was Colt Brennan
or Timmy Chang?
It was one of them. Where they were just, I mean, their numbers were gaudy.
Yes.
Gaudy. Heisman Trophy candidates didn't win it, but their careers never mounted to anything in the NFL.
We talked about this, I think, last week, that the top 10 players in terms of passing yards all time in college football, most of them did not become viable starters in the NFL. Now, I understand the counter argument, which Jared made to me when we were having this discussion, which is the top quarterbacks don't spend 4 years in college, usually. I understand that. But there is not a direct correlation, in my opinion, between winning the Heisman and having a successful NFL career. There are examples of it. Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. He had an outstanding rookie season. But for every Jaden Daniels who wins the Heisman Trophy, you have a Marcus Mariota or a Robert Griffin or a Johnny Manziel. I don't think there is a direct link between winning the Heisman Trophy and having success at the NFL level.
No, and Cam played Heisman Trophy level football. I think he finished third or fourth in the ballot. So I don't think I think they take three. Was he at the ceremony?
He was not a finalist. I believe there are 3 finalists.
Yeah,
if
so
I'm
he
not
was
mistaken.
the fourth guy. He was fourth behind obviously Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter won with 552 first place votes. Ashton Genty finished in second with 309 first
Dylan
place
Gabriel
votes.
and then
Dylan
Cam Ward.
Gabriel and then Cam Ward.
And look what Dylan, nobody's even mentioning Dylan Gabriel as a first or second round pick, maybe late second, third round, somewhere around there. But he's not even projected to be that. So listen, whether you win the Heisman Trophy or not, you know, just like those that make the argument, well, he wasn't at a winning program, or he didn't win, which they're saying he didn't win either a championship in his conference or he didn't win a national championship. Well, there are a lot of guys that didn't win their championship, nor have they won a national championship, and they turned out to be great pros at the quarterback position. So I don't think there's no correlation between, any of those two things when talking about Cam Ward. So I just want, and people are giving me their reasons, but it's the same reasons I've heard over and over and over again. Like, I can say that about just about every quarterback that comes out. What people are saying, give me something else, like something that I'm going to say, oh, okay, Now, one thing I do, like, for instance, when I'm looking at him and then I go to his numbers and everything else, his percentage when it comes to pressures, he ranks low. But so did CJ Stroud, I believe. It was either CJ Stroud or Caleb Williams.
You're talking about his completion percentage when pressured.
Yeah, the pressure, like his pressure meter, however they call it. When he's pressured,
Are you talking about the amount of times he's pressured, or when he does?
When he does get that pressure.
Yes, his completion percentage when he's under pressure.
Exactly, because he was a 70, but then it dipped down. So the saying, I mean, CJ Stroud, I believe it was CJ Stroud. His was low too. So stuff like that, like, okay, all right, maybe we can get him, once we get him in here, he can, versus he can see it a little bit better. Even though I thought he did a really good job at, when he got pressured, he delivered the ball and made some plays and got outside the pocket, but that number was low. Would I like to see that number higher? Absolutely. But when you talk about everything else, it was 1, 1, 3, 1, 2. So again, give me something.
So as we mentioned at the top of the show, you took the time, you did your homework. You went back and watched a lot of film from Cam Ward. You went back as far as high school looking at Cam Ward tape. So as you watched Cam Ward graduate from high school to Incarnate Word to Washington State to Miami, and I thought Jared made an interesting comparison yesterday when talking about the things he does like about Cam Ward, which is Cam Ward almost followed the path of a baseball player, right? If you liken Incarnate Word to single A baseball, Washington State to maybe double A baseball, and then Miami to triple A baseball, he worked his way through the minors, quote unquote, to be ready for the NFL. So as you watch the tape, let's just talk about the progression you saw from him at the college level when you looked at his tape at Incarnate Word, and as you watched him move on to Washington State in Miami. What impressed you most about what you saw from Cam Ward?
I think from Incarnate Word to Miami, I think he started to become a lot more aware of the pocket, I think. I'm not sure, because even if you watch him in high school, some of the stuff that he's doing, some of the stuff that he did in high school, he's still doing, but even better now. And he has the same mechanics, the same movement, but they've sped up. But he's found, even in high school, he's found his sort of peace within the pocket. Does he need to get better? Obviously, yes. He's going to need to get better. You always strive to get better at everything you do. But if we're talking Incarnate Word to Miami, I think he has a piece in the pocket now where, he understands how to get out of certain situations. He understands how much time he can buy inside, like outside the pocket, before he has to throw the ball away or before he tries to make one of those few, because it's not a lot on one of those few sort of Patrick Mahomes, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers type throws or Josh Allen, where he's just trying to use that arm strip and trying to get it in there. But you see the progression of him getting more and more comfortable in the pocket. And one of the most important things, I think, you see his confidence. You see his confidence from Incarnate Word. You see the leadership start to develop. You watch him in Incarnate Word, then you watch him at Washington State on the field, and then you watch him at Miami. It is like you're seeing him grow as a guy that understands the pocket and a guy in his leadership role. Like, I'm the guy. You can see that in his play at all three levels, how it's getting better and better. Now, let's talk about like the actual play. Again, I think his movements had sped up, and they've sped up tremendously. He releases the ball, especially on those quick, like we're trying to just get it out quickly to the receiver on the quick screen. Again, it's almost Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes-esque, how we can get rid of the ball with speed at an angle that many quarterbacks can do. Why? Because he's a baseball guy. So that ball comes out of his hands so quick, it's like pop, and the guy gets it and he's gone. Okay, so that's one. Two, you watch him make these intermediate throws and how he's able to lead that receiver right where he needs to go or stop him. The Florida game, they were running 3-by-1. They were running level routes, which means an out, a seam seam, and then an out, a deeper out, like a corner route. The second guy in, and it ended up becoming the third guy in. So he kind of took an inside release and ran a deep 17-yard out. All the while, the corner was to the outside because he had to take care of the seam route going up the sideline because now he becomes the 2. So he widens out. He made these throws consistently. He anticipated and hit the back shoulder of the receiver. And why did he hit the back shoulder of the receiver? Because he knew the defensive back was on the outside and he can play both the ball going deep as well as the ball coming intermediate. Those are throws that Cam Ward is making consistently. It wasn't just one time. Oh, and then the being on the right hash and throwing it on a dime to the left hash, a crossing route. He didn't just do it once. He didn't do it twice. He didn't do it 3 times. He did it many times. So those intermediate throws, he's making them. The hardest throw to make is that deep out. He makes it with ease, and it's accurate and precise. Now, is he perfect? No, he's not perfect. But I'm just showing you like the throw. And then the deep ball, oh, man, that thing's pretty. That thing, he can drop it just like Jaden Daniels dropped it in the bucket in college, or Caleb Williams. That's how he does. He drops it in the bucket. And he can lead you. He can throw that back shoulder. He makes every NFL throw, and he makes them consistently that there isn't a throw he can't make, even in the red zone. Even in the red zone, he was at again, I think it was Florida, or it could have been Virginia Tech. Or it might have been when he was Washington. I watched so many tapes. But he was on like the 8-yard line. And the inside guy, the third guy in, ran like a fake slant and then went over the top. Now, mind you, he ain't got much room to play with. Man, he dropped that thing over the defender and dropped it right in the back of the end zone. And he did that consistently. So again, people, now give me some in-depth stuff like that in regards to his negatives. That's what I want to hear in regards to, and I want to hear this from Jared. I really want to hear this from Jared.
Okay, well,
that's what I'm tasking Jared to do. Like,
okay.
Give me the that is so negative you can't draft him number 1, and I don't want to hear what everybody else is saying. I don't.
All right. Well, if you have a response to Derek, 615-737-1025. We will take those coming up next at 615-737-1025. The Atlanta Braves country road trip is coming to town and teaming up with the Nashville Predators and 1025 The Game. Join us at the BetMGM Sports Lounge in Bridgestone Arena this coming Wednesday, April 16th, for a Braves watch party as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays at noon. There will be free giveaways like hats and t-shirts. Plus, you could win autographed baseballs and free Braves tickets to a game of your choice. Also, the first 15 people in the door will win a pair of Preds tickets to that night's game, which is the season finale. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events.
Happy Thursday, everyone. This is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal to shed some extra pounds, only to come up disappointment or face some type of disappointment. But I'm going to give you a solution to all of this, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize their program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063. The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick expected to rejoin us in the next segment when we take a break from our wonderful Cam Ward discussion to talk to Elliot Friedman, Sportsnet NHL's insider. So, Derek, you're still waiting for someone to give you some in-depth analysis about Cam Ward. And lo and behold, here is Indy Ben.
Yes.
Indy Ben, who might be a little bit biased.
Exactly.
No, not Indy Ben.
His favorite city is in the title of his name. Do Indy Ben's friends call him Indy Ben, or is he just Ben?
I'm sure they call him. I'm sure there are some that do call him Indy Ben.
I would love to know that, Indy Ben. Do your friends also call you Indy Ben? Or when you're in Indianapolis, are you just known as Ben? Because everybody's from Indianapolis. Indy Ben texts in on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com and says, my reason I don't believe in Ward and him succeeding is mostly about the situation he is entering. The Titans are far, far away from competing and don't have the key pieces needed for a young quarterback. You need a top-notch offensive coach to tutor him, an above-average offensive line, a dependable tight end one, and at least 2 quality wide receivers. Titans have none of those. This is a situation where I could easily see the Titans ruining Ward within 2 to 3 years, which is why I'm all in for the pick at number 1 overall. He, of course, being a Colts fan.
Let me address that. Okay, let's just start with.
All right, let's start from the top.
Top notch.
You need a top-notch offensive coach to tutor him.
I'm not saying that Brian Callahan is top notch, but I mean, I think he can get the job done.
An above-average offensive line.
I think they are going to be above average. They went out and they did exactly what the fan base wanted them to do. The glaring problem that has been with this team for the last 2.5, 3 years, the offensive line. They went and beefed up the offensive line. They got an all-pro. They got a guy who's been a starter on a very good franchise and more. They go out Ziegler, who's been an all-pro or pro bowler. They go out and sign a swing tackle, I believe, a few days ago. They're going to move J.C. Latham to right. Skoronski was getting better last year. So they are building this offensive line. Now, again, you still haven't given me anything in regards to Cam Ward. I'm talking about Cam Ward, because Caleb Williams didn't have the best offensive line.
And by the way,
they were horrible.
And by the way, I'm sure you could do this same exercise with the Colts.
Yeah.
And have similar questions. Do the Colts have a dependable tight end one? No disrespect to Mo Alley Cox, but I'm not sure I would call him a dependable tight end one. You could argue about the receivers, Michael Pittman, etc. I think they're fine. I think their receiving core is fine. Do you trust Shane Steichen to be that, what did he call it? Top-notch offensive coach to tutor Anthony Richardson? We've seen how it's worked out for Anthony Richardson so far. I don't mean to pick on the Colts.
Anthony Richardson needs a break, though.
I think that's more so Anthony Richardson than anything else.
I don't know. Like, he likes to tap on the helmet. Hey, let me get out real quick.
I just think it's his. I think they overvalued the talent, and it may take a little bit longer than what they originally expected for him to develop into that guy they want him to be. Not to say he's not going to ultimately be that guy, but I'm just saying I think there was a miscalculation in regards to this one drafting him so high. So again, a receiver, dependable tight end. Yeah, I mean, listen, I know people, look at why I want to say Jadu Smith, Chigakonkwo. I know people look at Chig and because of what Jared is screaming, he's horrible. Chig got better last year. His numbers end up being pretty good. Is he a bona fide starter in this league? He hasn't proven that just yet, okay? But he has proven that he can make plays. He has proven that he's getting better catching the football. I don't know what was wrong with him the first half of the season, the first 4 or 5 games of the season, but he started to get better as the season went on. So tight end, well, he is a dependable tight end, but is he a tight end one in a lot? It's probably not. So, yeah, they can upgrade on that. At least 2 quality wide receivers. Y'all going to stop disrespecting Calvin Ridley, okay? Just please stop that. The kid's a player, okay? Is he an elite receiver? Probably not, no. But don't sit here and act as if this guy isn't a good receiver. He is a number 1 receiver for this Tennessee Titan team. Don't everybody want Tyreek Hill? Don't everybody want Justin Jefferson? Don't everybody want Chase? Yes. But you know what? There are only a couple of those guys out there. So Calvin Ridley is a damn good receiver. He had to work with these two guys this past season. You got to be a damn good receiver for that, to get numbers out of that. Don't disrespect the guy as if he's just somebody out there that can't play in this league. He can play.
Now, the Titans certainly need to address the wide receiver
Exactly.
position,
They
which we
need
will
to
get
address it.
into
Yes.
probably tomorrow. But Calvin Ridley, I remember sitting here with you, Derek. I think I was in that chair and you were in this one. When Will Levis and Calvin Ridley were having issues at training camp, and Calvin Ridley, what did he say? He was a little tired.
And what did I
right?
say? Can't do that. Can't do that.
You went off on it
Yeah.
for about an hour at least. It was wonderful radio. But Calvin Ridley again is you're obviously better at identifying this than I am. Would I put Calvin Ridley anywhere near the top tier of number one wide receivers in the NFL? No. I certainly think he has the capability of being a number one receiver. Is he a number one receiver on a more balanced team? Probably not. But there is something there. But I do agree that the Titans need another receiver. They absolutely, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Dustin from Hopkinsville says, Chig got worse, then got better, but never got back to what he was the year before. Chig's not mid even, and I loved him. Ridley's a great receiver, but you need another receiver to help a young quarterback and a great tight end. Well, at this point, unless the Titans draft a tight end, and where they're drafting, they're not drafting Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren at the top of the draft, and those players won't be available when the Titans pick in the second round. So unless you're drafting a mid-round tight end, it's going to be Chig Okonkwo and Josh Whyle again, right? And is that great? No, it's not. It's certainly a weakness, but they're the receiver issue is absolutely something they need to address.
Yeah, they do, and you're right with that assessment. They need more than just Calvin Ridley. I like Vance Jefferson, but I think he's more of a 3 than he is a 2. So they're gonna have to find that too. So again, y'all didn't tell me anything what's wrong with Cam Ward, and tell me, did I not say this? I said, I think it's more so y'all not trusting the Titans than it is the quarterback. Because if you look at the quarterback, no one's really giving me anything. It's more, they don't trust the organization. And again, I get it. That's why I said the Titans, y'all got to really understand and realize where your fan base is at right now. Y'all got to know that. And when I'm saying things on the radio, it's not personal to me, even though I do take personal about the team at times. Saying things is not as bad as it sort of seems, but I'm straight up in calling it black or white. But I don't know. Man, this team, whereas they have their faults, I get it. But if you're in a position and you're saying, I don't want to draft Cam Ward because of the organization, then I think we need to state that more instead of making it seem like it's a Cam Ward issue. That's why they want to draft him, because no one, and I still want Jared, and I know Jared to do his homework. I know it. That's why I asked. That's why I said, Jared, I want more than just the sort of stuff you've been hearing. Like, you watch the tape. Tell me, what is it that he consistently does that makes you worry or makes you think he shouldn't be worthy of the number 1 pick? I'm not saying that he's better than Jaden Daniels. I'm not saying that he's better than Caleb Williams. None of this stuff. What is it that doesn't make him a number 1 pick? Don't point to past drafts where he would have been past drafts. No, like what is it that he shouldn't be drafted number one? Let me know.
Think on it at 615-737-1025. We will get back into the Cam Ward discussion in just a little bit, but we are going to be joined by Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL insider. We'll discuss the state of the league and, of course, the Nashville Predators. That is coming up next at 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, by Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL Insider, presented by Old National Bank. Get old. Elliot, I want to start on a somber note. It was during our show yesterday that the news was announced that Ray Shero had died at the age of 62. Of course, Ray Shero began his NHL front office career here in Nashville for nearly a decade as an assistant GM before moving on to the Pittsburgh Penguins. It really did come out of left field for all of us. Were you as surprised by this news as we were? And what do you think Ray Shero's legacy in the game is going to be?
Yes, I was. He had been ill, but he kept it pretty quiet. I don't think there were a lot of people who knew about it. And there were a lot of people who considered themselves friends of his who didn't really know about it. I think his really close inner circle knew. Obviously, the Minnesota Wild knew, but there were some other people who dealt with him over the years who didn't know. And so he wanted to keep it quiet. And, not surprisingly, those that he really knew best and trusted did. When I think of a couple of things about Ray Shero, I think about father-son Stanley Cup champions. He won a Stanley Cup as the general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And his dad, Fred, won 2 Stanley Cups coaching the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers were the first expansion team to win the Stanley Cup, and he won them back-to-back with them in 1974 and 75. So I think about that, a Stanley Cup champion family. I also remember, he was the GM in New Jersey when they traded for PK Subban from the Predators, and that was at the draft that year. And I remember when I spoke to him after they traded for Subban, I said, "Did you get a chance to speak to Taylor Hall or any of your players?" And he showed me, he said, "Do you want to see what Taylor Hall sent me?" And I was like, "Sure." And he showed me the phone, and he had on it a green check mark icon. Like that was, the Hall didn't even send any words. He just sent the check mark icon. So we were kind of laughing about that. I remembered that moment very well. And then the other thing I think about, and now that I'm a dad, I think about this kind of stuff a lot. A couple of years ago, I think it was at the draft in Nashville, I ran into his sons who were working in the NHL for other teams. And we got introduced to each other, and I chatted with them for a while, and they seemed like really nice kids. And the next day I saw Shero at the second day of the draft, and I told him, "I met your sons last night. They're really good guys." And he just waxed poetic about them for at least 10 minutes. So, I think, it's been a tough week for those of us who knew both Ray Shero and Greg Millen, the broadcaster I worked with, who died suddenly this week too. But the one thing that they both had in common was, Ray had the 2 boys that I know of that I met, and Greg had 4 kids, and they were both if you ever asked them about their families, they would beam about them. So that's the kind of stuff I remember the most.
Elliot, in your latest 32 Thoughts column, you write that this is the time of year where we begin to get a better handle on the potential for change across NHL front offices and benches, I should say. You also mentioned that there are a lot of mixed signals that exist right now. As you begin to monitor these situations, which teams are you keeping an eye on the closest?
Rangers. There's no question about that. I think that's one that I think a lot of people are wondering, where is that going to go? I think I would mention, Rick Tocchet's situation in Vancouver. The Canucks got eliminated last night when Minnesota beat San Jose in that Wild game. The Canucks are out. The Canucks have an option on Tocchet for next season. I was under the impression initially that there was kind of an understanding that he wouldn't coach if they wouldn't hold him that option if they couldn't work out an extension. The Canucks have indicated that's not the case anymore. They've said that, if he's coaching in the NHL next year, it'll be in Vancouver. I think they were a little annoyed at some of the reports about Philadelphia, but we'll see how that one all works out. Buffalo, the Sabres have really had a disappointing year, although they're really putting a nice shine on it right now. They've gotten hot at the end of the year, and I think that there are some people who are wondering, okay, does that prevent the owner Terry Pegula from making any potential changes because they're finishing the year strong? I'm not necessarily convinced of that at all, but I know that some people are starting to wonder about that. I think that, Philadelphia's obviously got a coaching situation to make. Boston has had a very disappointing season. I think we're all wondering to see, what the consequences of that could be as well.
You mentioned the New York Rangers. You also had a note in your column about Peter Laviolette. He took some heat after the Rangers.
I thought that you guys would get a kick out of the way I wrote that.
I will tell you this. You wrote, quote, "I've dealt with Laviolette enough over the years to know it's not what he says, but how he says it or how he looks when he says it. The look on his face said it all. I have been on the receiving end of many Peter Laviolette death stares over the years." So no, I know exactly what you're talking about. That paragraph spoke to me, Elliot, in a way I'm not sure how many other people can relate to. But when you talk about the Rangers and Laviolette specifically, what's gone wrong there, you think? Why did the Rangers have the season that they ultimately did?
I think there's a couple of things, Adam. And yeah, you know what? Like, I wasn't saying that to take a shot at Laviolette. I just think you get to know people. I don't even know if a personal level is the right thing to say, but you just get to know people and who they are and how they act and their mannerisms. And, that quote was floating around social media when he said it. And someone sent it to me. I said, "Look, I got to watch the video because it's like I said, it's not what he says, it's how he says it or what he looks like." And I looked at it, I was like, "Oh boy." This year it just never got off on the right foot. Like, some guys struggled, right? Like Zibanejad wasn't himself for a long time. Kreider hasn't been himself the whole year. I think Fox has been battling injuries. He hasn't looked like himself the whole year. Like the truest reason, Adam, is that a lot of their core guys just weren't who they can be, right? And if you're like, you need, like, in this league to win, you need goaltending, you need your best players to play like your best players, and you need depth, and you got to be strong down the middle. This year, New York's best players, they weren't good in most cases. Like, not everybody was ungood, but a lot of them were not at their level. And, I think too, the whole Trouba situation, it was unsettled. He knew that they wanted to move him last year. He kept his contractual rights. He wouldn't move, which was his right. He kept his contractual rights, but it was always unsettled. Like, this was going to be his last year in New York. But I think that it just didn't start well. I think Trouba really struggled mentally with the fact that he knew the team wanted to move him. I don't think he was the same for a lot of this year. And then there was a point where they sent out a note to all the teams that making Jacob Trouba and Chris Kreider available. And when that got out, it was an earthquake in their dressing room. And, I think the players really struggled with that. Eventually they traded Trouba to Anaheim. Like, they basically told him, if you don't play ball with us, we're going to make life really hard on you. They made it very clear they didn't want him around anymore. And they just didn't recover from that. And, I think at times they've played better, but not consistently enough. And I just think, aside from their guys not playing well, Adam, that whole Trouba situation and the way it played out, I just think it was an earthquake in their dressing room that they never recovered from.
We're talking with Elliot Friedman, 32 Thoughts podcast. Now, Elliot,
Derek, where you been?
Hey, I've been
I
here,
haven't
man.
heard you the past couple of weeks.
I've been here. I've been hearing you. So
Okay, my goodness, my condolences on that.
no, it's always good to hear what you have to say when it comes to hockey or any other sport that we talk about with you. But you did have in your latest column the arguments about Ryan Johansson and his grievance should be heard or will be heard very soon here. How do you expect that to go?
You know, I one thing I don't always guess. I'm not a lawyer, Derek. I would say this first, but I would say this. Initially, when that came out, I heard the league was very confident about its case, and the Players Association maybe wasn't as confident. But the more I heard about it, and the longer it went on, I heard that the Players Association was more confident in its case. And so unless they reach a settlement, like I said, the final arguments are supposed to be heard next week. Unless they reach a settlement, I just know the Players Association was very confident in their case, that all due diligence and proper due diligence had been done. So we'll see.
Now, obviously, you know, a monumental, thing was done this week with Ovi breaking Gretzky's record of most goals, and in the way he's been honored and the way Gretzky was there and everything else, it just seems like the older guys sort of gravitated just to say congratulations and show how much they appreciate, you know, what he has done, because they understand and know how hard it is to do. But you've covered basketball with the Toronto Raptors being there. You've covered basketball. You've been around it. Why do you think it's so different in basketball, where there's just so much negativity when it comes to, you know, the older generation and the newer generation? It seems like there's a lot of button of the heads, but you don't see that, or at least I don't see that. And when it comes to hockey, it's like they appreciate just the game as a whole, whether, you know, you play in the 1960s or you're playing now. I think there's a great, and not to say that the NBA guys don't appreciate that, but it just seems like there's more bickering over here than it is on the other side. Now, I know it's not perfect on hockey. I get it.
No, it's right.
But it's just, it's more visible
Derek,
on one side.
I'm not a big please like my sport guy. Like, I like everything. And I'm like you. Like, I love hockey. It's not perfect. I love basketball. It's not perfect. Like Derek, I'm a Michael Jordan truther. I will always be Team Jordan. But that doesn't mean I can't appreciate what LeBron James has done. Like, if you're going to ask me who's number one, I'm always going Jordan. I am never not going Jordan. But that doesn't mean I can't say, hey, that LeBron James, he's had a hell of a career. He's done incredible things. I am astonished by it. And, you know, Derek, I got to tell you, like, the only thing I can really think of is, of all of the four North American team sports, like the biggest ones, basketball is the most individual. Like, it's the one where, you know, one player makes the greatest, has the greatest effect. I think you could argue quarterback in hockey is probably the closest, or quarterback in football is probably the closest, but there's no sport where one player can make as big a difference, I don't think, as the NBA. And I think because of that, and the teams are smaller and things like that, I think it's a little less, quote unquote, team than hockey or football or baseball would be. I think that's the reason. I really do. Like, I'll tell you this, when I covered basketball, I covered that first when I was 24 years old. It was one of the greatest things that happened to me, because I met a lot of people who I didn't have in common with because of my background and their backgrounds. And you just realize that people are people, right? Like, if you just show up and you treat people respectfully, everybody finds a way to figure it all out. But the thing I loved about the NBA the most, Derek, is that those players, they will say anything. Like whatever is on their minds, they will tell you. There is no sport, and I don't know if it's just 5-on-5, so much man-to-man, like in football, Derek, which of course you played. Like, obviously, if like you did all the time, if a wide receiver beats a cornerback, you can really see it. But a lot of the other times, you don't really tell who outduels who on one play. Basketball, it's all out there. It's all out there, man to man. And I think because of that, smaller teams, more obvious who beats who, I just think it leads to a more individual kind of existence. And that's why I think it is. It's the best answer I can give you. But it is so true. Like, I cannot believe the way that the previous generations talk about the current generations. Like, LeBron's done incredible things. Steph Curry might be the greatest shooter ever. And like, people are like, he couldn't score in the 70s. Like, you don't think that guy would figure out how to score at any generation? Like, there are some hockey fans, young ones in particular, they'll say, oh, Wayne Gretzky wouldn't be as effective today. I'm like, that is insane. Like, he was great because he was great, and he would find a way to be great in any era. Like, I don't understand people who dump on the current athletes. Like, you're telling me that Steph Curry or LeBron James wouldn't be dominant in any generation? I think people are nuts when they say stuff like that.
We're talking to Elliot Friedman, 32 Thoughts. So, Elliot, you're talking Michael Jordan. I'm here in Salt Lake for the first time, where, of course, Michael Jordan broke the hearts of thousands of Utah Jazz fans 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I did not order pizza last night for fear of the Michael Jordan story that he told, that he got the food poisoning, which some people buy and some people don't, it seems like.
That sounds like
30 for 30.
That sounds like that one could be 50-50, I have to say. Like, even being a big Michael
We
Jordan
want the
fan,
Willie
that
Donick
sounds like
flu game. We want the Willie Donick
The flu game?
Yes.
Yeah, you're not going to get it tonight.
The flu
Maybe in a
broadcast
future visit.
tonight. Yeah, the flu broadcast. There you go. Yeah.
Well, Elliot, I want to ask you about, you got me thinking with the Rangers story and the locker room, and nobody will be able to quantify for sure how much that upheaval of Trouba and Kreider and all of that stuff and the season going south afterwards. But I wonder, there was a time where I think the pendulum was more old school, where the general managers and the hockey ops people in general would side with the value a guy has to the room, even if the analytics side might say, hey, this guy isn't as productive as he was, and money-wise, he's really not living up to that contract. Now it might, do you feel like it's maybe going the other way, where it's way too much on analytics and value, and not enough people stop to say, well, wait a minute, what's the locker room gonna be like if we move on from X and Y player?
You know, I think I will say this. I think analytics have a greater role in hockey than they ever have. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, Willie, because I think you should consider everything. Like, the salary cap is about to go over $100 million in 2 years. If you're not using every possible tool to figure out, what the value of players, I think you're making a mistake. But I will say this, you know, Willie, you look at Washington this year. Why did they sign Chychrun? You know, why are they signing these guys like Thompson and Lindgren? Because they think they have a special chemistry. They see a team, like, you look at that, like, winning makes everything better. And you guys have seen that firsthand this year in Nashville. It's been a really hard year. And is it because you guys have a bunch of bad guys? No, it's not. It's because losing sucks. And you look at Washington and you look at the way that they rallied around Ovechkin and the year they've had, like, that's a good room. So it's not only that they have good players, but they have a good chemistry. And I think you look at Winnipeg, the number one team in the league this year, one of the reasons that they think they've gotten better over the years is a lot of those guys have stayed together. They've built the culture together. They lean on each other, and they demand the most out of each other. Like, they talked about when they got wiped out by Colorado last year, how do we get 10% better? How do we make ourselves 10% better? And I just think that, you know, it's never bad to use every tool you can. But I think that when you have a good chemistry and you have your cornerstone players get along and push each other to be better, that is something you have to protect as much as you possibly can.
Got two more quick ones for you, Elliot. The Predators are now locked in to position 30, or the third best odds of getting the first pick. And now we're diving into all the percentages and probabilities of picks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it's an interesting system that they tweaked a few years ago.
Yeah.
By and large, do you think this system is working? Are general managers satisfied with how the effect has been on, because it's been different things, different years, right? How they've determined who gets the first pick.
I think generally, yes. They tweaked it a couple of years ago because they didn't like how many long shots had won. And Detroit just didn't like how many times they were bad and never won. Like Detroit is probably the team that hates it the most. I'm sure in Nashville you really feel bad for the Detroit Red Wings too, but they're
poor guys.
They hated it the most. I think most people would tell you it's better than out and out tanking. So I would say that for the most part, if you ask them, they would say this is probably the best system. I'll also say this, that last week when we talked about the prospects, someone I know was listening, and he said there's one guy you left out in the top 4 or 5, and that was a kid by the name of Anton Frondell, who's a center out of Sweden. I know a couple people who went and saw him a little while ago, and they said that by the draft, you will start to hear that name a lot more if you haven't already. And because he's a center, and the Predators have always had a lot of success in Sweden, that's another name that they think would be on Nashville's radar. So I wanted to add that from our conversation last week.
Good to know. Good to know. We're going to learn about these guys a lot between now and the day they actually draft. Last thing, Barry Trotz has said more than once now that free agency with the trade for Michael Bunting and him signed next year, that his attention might be a little bit more in the free agency market on defensemen. They've got a lot of defensemen that I think you could argue are pretty good, 4, 5, 6, maybe, but they could use a top 3 or 4. What is the market right now? Because I realize people can be signed between now and July 1st, but how is that shaping up? Who might be out there that we need to take note of?
Well, I'll say this: like Chychrun just came off the board, right? So that was a big one. And there's another defenseman who, excuse me, I think is probably going to come off the board, and that is Gavrikov from LA. A lot of people are expecting him to sign. So I think that those are probably 2 of the biggest names that are come down. I would say Neil Pionk, Winnipeg, I know they're trying to sign him. Ivan Provorov, Columbus, they've been trying to sign him. Dmitry Orlov, Carolina, he's just coming off a 2-year deal. I mean, those are some of the names that I think would probably be at the top of a lot of these lists in terms of what is left over. So those are some of the names that, if you're looking for like the top of the heap about what remains, I think those are the names that would make sense. Cody Ceci's a guy, he's not like a number 1 guy. I think on a good team, he's second pair, maybe third, but he's a stabilizing guy who causes you absolutely no issues. Depending on the numbers there, in terms of what he'd be asking for, I could see that being kind of someone that Barry Trotz would like, but you're not looking at him to be a top 2 guy. That's on a team that you expect to win. That's probably a little bit high, but he's a really solid, low maintenance player. To me, the top 2 guys were Chychrun and Gavrikov, and I would say that Pionk and Provorov would probably be next. But obviously the 2 guys are done. I guess the other name I'd say is Aaron Ekblad, who just had a suspension and is out until the 3rd game of the playoffs because of use of a PED. He's the other guy, and obviously being in Florida, he's not far from you guys. And unless he takes a significant discount in Florida, he's expected to hit the market.
Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL Insider, joining us on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, and presented by Old National Bank. Get old. Elliot, great stuff as always. We'll catch up next week.
Enjoy Utah. Speak to you guys later.
Thanks,
All right.
Elliot. Elliot Freeman joining us on the program. 615-737-1025. We will react to what Elliot Freeman had to say coming up next. But before we get there, you can win an exclusive Jason Aldean experience by texting in the keyword Jason, Jason, to 615-737-1025, and you will receive a link to sign up for a chance to win all-inclusive tickets to the Eurostone Club at Bridgestone Arena to see Jason Aldean, plus a chance to win $1,000 cash.
All right. Everybody knows that right now, the finances, the financial world, a little bit of inflation, higher costs, a lot of uncertainty day in and day out. And it can be a little stressful, especially if you're looking for cash and you're looking for ways to be in a better spot. Well, Loan Pronto, if you're looking to get cash out of your home equity, refinance out of a high rate, or do a home improvement project, Loan Pronto is where you make it happen. And they can make it happen quick. You can get that money in less than 2 weeks, and most don't even need an appraisal. And what they can do is put you in a better spot. You can pay off a credit card bill that maybe has an insane interest rate. Maybe it's a car loan you've been wanting to pay off for a while because you're paying the interest every month. These are the types of things you can do. And the average homeowner with Loan Pronto cuts their monthly bills by about $1,000 per month. That's pretty good stuff. So if you want to learn more, find out about how you can use your home equity to your advantage. Go to loanpronto.com or just call now, 615-499-5780. That's loanpronto.com or 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Bingen here with you. Willie out in Salt Lake City with the Predators. They take on the Utah Hockey Club tonight. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7. Right here on 1025, 1063 the game. Willie, if I saw it correctly, Andrew Burnett back with the club today?
Yes, he is back this morning. Was at the morning skate. Got a chance to say hello to him and welcome him back. They released a statement, and he's been very private about what the family matter, the specifics of the family matter. But I think everybody was glad to see him back doing his thing tonight. And this is the first time any of us, of course, have experienced the Delta Center here. There's the big statue of Stockton Malone outside. So Mace and I got a picture in front of those two guys. You got to do that, right? So now we'll see what the hockey vibe is. But Andrew Burnett described it as a hornet's nest from what he's told. So this is their last home game of the year, so I'd imagine it's going to be rocking tonight.
Where is the Greg Ostertag statue?
You know what? It might be Greg Ostertag was a big dude, right? So you would figure a statue involving Greg Ostertag would stand out.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen it.
The Byron Mouton statue, where he got pushed off by Michael Jordan.
That wasn't a push off.
Oh yes, that's still a sore spot. Ask Michael Jordan about it. They did in the Last Dance. He had some pointed opinions. I have to say, Michael Jordan sort of won me over.
Mm-hmm.
The Brian Russell, it was Russell, not Mouton, right? Russell was the guy that.
Why did I say Mouton?
Jordan.
Byron Mouton played for Maryland. I'm sorry, Byron Russell.
Byron Russell. I always, for years, D. Mace thought it was a push-off.
Mm-hmm.
But the angles that they showed in the 30 for 30, of course, we had nothing to do but watch this, right? Everybody watched The Last Dance because nobody could go anywhere. It was right in the middle of the shutdown. Like, we look forward to the programming every week. But I have to say, I wasn't rooting for the Bulls back then. And I was like, he pushed off. I was that guy. He pushed him off. He pushed off. But I think maybe there's an argument that he didn't push off.
Hey, I mean,
they didn't call it, so
if they allow it,
well, they didn't call it. That's for sure.
They're not going to call
it. They
so.
let a lot of that stuff go back then, right? When we agree, it was a much more hand-checking, pushing, physical game. Not even close to what you see today.
I clearly have some unresolved issues about Maryland winning the 2002 national championship. That's why I said Byron Mouton instead of Byron Russell. By the way, you mentioned that statement from Andrew Burnett released from the Predators. It says, quote, "My father experienced an event that required urgent medical attention back home in Ontario, which is the reason why I was away from the team for the past few days. I'm happy to be back with our group beginning today in Utah. I'd like to thank our ownership and Barry Trotz for allowing me to spend this time with my family and thank our entire coaching staff for their help in guiding our team in my absence. My family and I sincerely appreciate the support from everyone in our organization, our players, and our fans." So good to see Andrew Burnett back with the Predators. Now, Willie, you mentioned it with Elliot. You texted it to us this morning. You were crunching the draft lottery number. So correct me if I'm wrong here. The Predators are officially locked into 30th place in the NHL standings?
Yes, they cannot go up or down no matter what happens. Win 4, lose 4, other teams win 4, lose 4. They will be 30th.
So they will have the third best odds of winning the NHL draft lottery. I believe they have an 11.5% chance of winning the lottery and selecting number 1 in the NHL draft. But you crunch some of the other numbers, and I think the summary here is that the Predators are guaranteed a top 5 pick in the NHL draft.
Yes, they're guaranteed that. And I knew that. I think a lot of the fans knew that.
Yes.
Then I think they have known for weeks that 30th was the likely spot.
Mm-hmm.
What I had not really realized until I saw this tweeted out by Max Hurst, who went to one of your favorite websites, Adam.
Tankathon.com.
Yes,
did you hear Barry Trotz allege that he has never heard of Tankathon.com with Jared the other day?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I believe it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I believe it. We love Tankathon at this.
Okay, Barry.
At this station.
I think I believe Barry on that, but I think you just never want to be associated with anything that would associate with you with tanking. But tanking is the important thing, right? Of how we got to the current system that's there right now, because some people like it, as you heard Elliot say. Some people are really not crazy about it because what it does, it's designed so that if you just say, well, let's lose the rest of our games, like the famous example you've pointed out earlier this season, Adam, where the Sabres fans were cheering against their team. They would cheer when the other team would score because they wanted to get the first pick. The year that Connor McDavid was coming out, they had to, quote, settle for Jack Eichel. But back then, it was just pretty simple. You finish last, you get the first pick, like the NFL does. The NFL does not have a lottery, right? So on that final Sunday, everybody was kind of saying, hey, they put Will Levis back in the game. Hey, Joe Milton's actually leading the Patriots to a victory.
Remember,
this is working out pretty well.
Tankathon.com.
Hey,
remember, Tankathon.com crashed early that day because people were rushing to the site after the Patriots won, the Titans lost, everything like that.
Yes. And so I think some would argue that the lottery is a good thing. But the NHL came up with this because they felt that was starting to happen with some teams. They were tanking. So I was surprised, right? I knew that the Predators would have an 11.5% chance of picking first. I didn't know the exact probabilities of the other 4 spots, and now we have that locked in. So it might surprise people to know what those are. They have 11.5 of picking first. Now, you think about it, you got 100 different ways something can go. Let's just say you had 100 ping pong balls in there, which is not how they do it, by the way. There are only 14 ping pong balls. Did you guys know that?
I don't think I did.
There are 14 ping pong balls, and you pick up a combination of 4, and that combination of 4 numbers dictates who gets the spot. So it's not as simple as just reaching into the jar or, whatever those machines are that suck up the ping pong ball up into the thing. But 11.5 is a good chance. It's the 3rd best odds, but there's a lot of teams in there. And so you have an 88.5% chance of not getting the first pick. They have an 11.2% chance of getting the second pick because you draw for the first pick, then you draw for the second pick. Now, this is where I really got thrown off, and I started questioning myself. I was like, did you just not pay any attention in the probability and statistics course at Vanderbilt? And I had to answer myself back in the mirror. No, you weren't paying very much attention in that class.
Rocks for jocks, baby. Rocks for jocks.
Yes, I better in Rocks for Jocks. And I avoided the math department after that class for the rest of my career. I took the minimum amount of math classes. But they only have a 7.8% chance of staying with the 3rd pick, even though that is where they're slotted, right? Now, the chances of the 4th pick, I don't know if you guys have looked at this. They have nearly a 40% chance of ending up picking 4th, the highest probability of any of the 5 spots. And then for the 5th pick, which is the lowest they could possibly pick, it's almost 30%, 29.8%. Now, does that surprise you a little bit? It surprised me.
You're asking the wrong guy when it comes to math.
It just surprised me. It surprises me that you put all that together. Okay.
I didn't put it together.
Then ask us if we felt surprised.
I've told you this before. I was so bad at math that my freshman year in college, I had to repeat 11th grade math.
There you go.
That's how bad at math I was. So
hey, we all got our strengths. We all got our weaknesses.
Don't ask me to crunch the numbers.
Okay? But we got
But Max went to the Tankathon, and they've got this huge chart because it doesn't just focus on the Predators. It's got all of the teams in there. And some of those spots can still change between now and the end of the season. But since the Predators were locked in, he deciphered the chart. And the first thing I did this morning was to text him. I was like, how in the world are their lowest chances of staying 3rd when they're going to finish 30th? Shouldn't that mean the most likely place to finish is 3rd? But that's not. The answer is no, because what they did is they wanted the teams that didn't finish in the playoffs to have a shot at the first pick. And while they don't really have a high shot, there's a lot of teams in that boat, right? Because they want to encourage those teams to not tank when you're out of it. Keep winning, and we're still going to give you a shot at the first and the second pick. So there's a bunch of teams in there that could leapfrog. Hopefully they don't. But, there's a realistic shot at 4th or 5th. In fact, those are the highest probabilities. The highest is that they would finish with the 4th pick. And the second highest is that they would finish with the 5th pick. Now, that surprised me. It had me questioning everything. But I'm glad to know that Elliot says that the 5th best prospect or whatever is rising up, because that's really what you're looking at. What's the worst case scenario? You'd pick 5th instead of 3rd, 2nd, 1st.
615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game.
Well, we'll go into more detail about this lottery stuff and tonight's game on our broadcast for the Predators, and it is brought to you in part by League Company. And League Company, of course, has been in service since 1944 in our listening area. Now, it's a beautiful day out here in Salt Lake. Then it's on to Vegas for the final road game of the season. It's going to be 90 some odd degrees in Vegas. And is that good? I don't know. I was hoping for like 80 maybe. But look, the hot months are coming, whether we like them or not, especially back home in Nashville. Have you had your air conditioning unit checked? When's the last time you had it checked? Maybe it's made it through the last couple of summers, but is it due to maybe break down on it? Maybe so. So if you need to get the air conditioning unit checked, call League Company. They'd be glad to do it, and they could build a long-term relationship for you if you'd like, because you don't want to get caught in the summer months with no air conditioning. I've been there before. It ain't cool. No pun intended. 615-567-1000 or leaguecompany.com. 615-567-1000 or leaguecompany.com. Get that air conditioning unit checked. Use League Company. We do at our house. They've been in service since 1944, and they're a proud sponsor of Nashville Predators hockey.
D-Mace, Finken, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vinkin here with you. Predators are back in action tonight, kicking off their final road trip of the season in Utah against the Utah Hockey Club. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek, Andrew from Dover on our text line says,
Yes.
D-Mace, how about that game from Luka? What a return to Dallas last night. Luka Doncic, by the way, 45 points in his first game in Dallas. Lakers win 112-97.
Luka had on those special shoes last night, boy. Luka came out and pulled those shoes straight out the box and said, "Let's go." Because man, oh man, the minute he stepped on that court, boy, after the the presentation, that Dallas gave him, which was great. He came out on the court. He was straight on revenge mode. That's what he like, that mode, like 5 or 6 modes in a game. When you're playing Mortal Kombat or something, you get that last mode where it's gonna be hard to get out the first round. That's that mode that Luka was on, because he had 31
I
at
believe
half.
he had 31 at halftime.
Now he ended up with 45, which is like he should have had more.
But I believe the
man,
over-under for points was set at 30.5, which he cleared at halftime.
He cleared it. He was on a mission last night, man. So much so you were hearing fire Nico chants in the arena.
This is what's so fascinating to me, gentlemen, and I would love for your opinion on this. I was reading a story on ESPN.com, and the reporter talked to a fan outside of the arena, and that fan said, quote, "For the rest of Luka's career, this is still going to be a home game to him, because I feel like we're going to be cheering for him when we should be cheering for the Mavs." Is there an example where a player gets traded? We know the reaction in Dallas. I mean, it was it was like a funeral scene when the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers. I can't recall off the top of my head another example that is similar to this, where a player gets traded from a team and he is still held in such high esteem by the fan base when he returns. Willie, do you have any thoughts on this? Any ones that come to mind?
Well, I understood why it happened, and you could argue that it was an effective trade, but I think Shea Weber has some of that for the Predators. Would you agree?
Yeah,
just the reverence.
I would say that. I don't recall, however, Predators fans, laying flowers outside of Bridgestone Arena, and I believe a couple of Mavericks fans even did like they carried a casket or something outside the arena. I don't remember. That's
pretty extreme.
It's an incredible.
That's pretty extreme.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah, I haven't.
I would say that it wasn't an in-season trade, and so in-season is probably a different level of frustration and craziness. I would say when the Mets traded Tom Seaver, this is going back a ways.
By the way, you should note that Teron Davenport is in the studio. He's got his Mets hat. He's got his Mets sweats. He's got his blue and orange Nikes. He's
I
all
wouldn't
set.
expect anything different.
He's all
I
set.
would not expect anything different. Pretty decent start for the Mets. But when they traded the franchise, Tom Seaver, at like midnight of the trade deadline, I think it was 1977. I was too young to really remember that. But when you go back through Mets history, that's a moment that stung big time. And that had a lot of reverberations.
What about 1990
different time
when
and different
left for the
era?
Dodgers?
Say that one again?
1990 when Darryl Strawberry left for the Dodgers?
Yeah, and that was a free agency, right? So that was his choice. I think the trading is where you can get mad. You could get mad at the organization, but not at the player, right? Isn't that kind of what's happening with Luka?
Was Carmelo Anthony like that when he left Denver?
Yeah, when he went to New York.
Yeah, and they still loved him in Denver because it was like they didn't see it as him.
I don't know.
They saw it more so as the management.
But did either of you see this quote from Jason Kidd before the game? He was asked about how he would address Mavs fans who feel like there is no hope without Luka. And he said, quote, "Trades happen. Some are comparing it to Babe Ruth, which is kind of cool. Not sure you want to be compared to that side of the Babe Ruth trade."
No,
I don't think Jason Kidd quite understood what he was being asked.
Until they get either one or two things are going to happen. either they're gonna have to win a championship before the Lakers do, or before Luka does, or they're gonna have to fire Nico. One of the two. That's the only way I think. And then Dallas fans may not still get over it, even if they win a championship, or even if you fire the GM, they still may not get over it because, again, how many times do you see a trade like of that magnitude out of just nowhere? It was just like this clandestine meeting that they had, and they just did it under the shade of the night, and all of a sudden everybody woke up to, Luka got
I think
traded.
that's unique. That's fairly unique about that trade. That it was not brewing for a while. Technically, Babe Ruth was sold and not traded, right?
Okay, fair
If we're
enough.
being technical.
Yes.
But the other one that comes to mind, Wayne Gretzky was traded, but there's a whole 30 for 30 on the build-up to that, right? And that was shocking. And they've never forgiven the guy that did it in Edmonton. But what was weird is, you mentioned even if they win a championship without him, the Oilers actually won a championship 2 years after they traded Gretzky. Isn't that crazy? Looking back, that's a pretty phenomenal feat. Mark Messier, and they had a lot of great players still on that squad, but they won the Stanley Cup without Gretzky, even though that was a trade that had
Did
enormous
Shaq get
magnitude like
traded,
that.
or did he just sign? Orlando just wasn't going to sign him back because they were going with Penny, or did he get
Who?
traded?
Shaquille
Shaquille
O'Neal
O'Neal.
from
Oh,
Orlando.
he left. No, he left him high and
Yeah.
dry in the free agent
Okay.
market. That was a stunner. So that was on Shaq. That wasn't on the. Now you could fault management for not
Yeah.
finding a way
To
to
sign him.
getting him to agree to stay, but I think he saw the glitz and glitter of LA and went west.
That'll do it for us today. Predators back in action tonight against the Utah Hockey Club. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7. So 1 hour later, puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a blessed, safe, wonderful Thursday. Peace. Doo-doo-doo. Why don't